Just over my shoulder there is a Wetherspoons pub called the Mile Castle. But why is it called the Mile Castle? I mean, it's not as if there's been a castle built on this particular street, or has there? In this video, I'm going to show you something that's going to blow your mind. I'm going to show you something that you probably didn't even know existed, which provides the key to the answer as to why it's called the Mile Castle. It's coming up. Welcome back, it's Eddie here from Tyneside Life. I should say from the outset that I'm not plugging Wetherspoons. I'm not being sponsored by Wetherspoons, and they don't even know that I'm here filming today. So strictly speaking, the video isn't about Wetherspoons per se. It's about the buildings that they second, purchase and then repurpose into these pubs that you see all over the country. Banks and theatres and police stations and the like. Historical buildings with really interesting names. That's what I'm interested in, to find out why the Wetherspoons, particularly in Newcastle and the Tyneside area, are called the names that they're called. So where am I? Well, I'm at the bottom of Granger Street. The Mile Castle is the bottom of Granger Street and the junction of Westgate Road. I think it's the biggest Wetherspoons in Newcastle. It occupies 3 floors, and next door it has a Mile Castle Hotel as well, with about 26 rooms. So I'm right in the thick of it. And before we go any further and dig into the history of this building and then why it's called the Mile Castle, let's learn a little bit more about it. Wetherspoons has built an empire on a simple but clever idea. Buy up big, often historic buildings in prime locations and sell pints and food at rock bottom prices. No music, no fuss, just scale and consistency. It's part hub, part social institution, catering to students, pensioners and city workers alike. Love it or loathe it, Wetherspoons has turned affordable beer and British history into a business model, one that fills former banks and theatres instead of knocking them down. The Mile Castle stands in a Grade 2 listed building that once held a very different kind of treasure. Built in the 1960s as the Newcastle Savings Bank, it was designed by architect John Edward Watson in a grand French Renaissance style, all carved stone, arched windows and civic pride. For over a century, it served as a symbol of thrift and security before being transformed into the 3-storey pub we know today. Step inside and you'll still see echoes of its past. High ceilings, ornate plasterwork and that unmistakable air of Victorian confidence. Today, the Mile Castle serves as one of Newcastle's busiest Wetherspoons and the biggest, although it was initially called Lloyd's No. 1 Bar in 2009. Spread across 3 floors, it's a meeting point for just about everyone. Office workers on lunch breaks, travellers heading to and from Central Station, and football fans filling the place on match days. It's also an ideal spot for that hangover breakfast. Decorating the walls are reminders of Newcastle's past. The hotel brings in visitors looking for a cheap central stay with 26 rooms, while the pub itself runs from breakfast through to late evening. Fascinating, eh? Now, to unlock the mystery as to why that building is now called the Mile Castle, we have to go back in time about 1900 years, yes, nearly 2,000 years back to when the Romans first got up to this neck of the woods and the Emperor Hadrian instructed these Roman soldiers who were posted up here to build a wall that stretched from Wallsend over there to Solway in Firth on the west coast of Cumbria. It took about 6 years to build. And just on my left here is part of the route of Hadrian's Wall, and it stretches all the way up Westgate Road and it goes on and on. And the reason I'm walking a little bit further up Westgate Road is because of that massive clue as to why it's called the Mile Castle. Let's take a look. So if you've lost track of what I've been saying and you're not familiar with where I am, I'm on Westgate Road. And actually Westgate Road is really important historically for Newcastle as well. It formed one of the 3 main arterial routes in and out of Newcastle. But I'm about, gauging by the length of a football pitch, and maybe it's about 3/4 the length of a football pitch, 80, 90 metres from the Mile Castle, and opposite the road from the Newcastle Arts Centre. I don't know if you can see that yellow building behind me there, the Black Swan. Right, let's get to the business end of this video. the real meat and nuts and bolts of the history. So I'm walking into the courtyard of the Newcastle Art Centre, which also includes the Black Swan. The Black Swan. And this is it. And it was in 1985, a guy called David Fry, who was a resident potter here, who was converting this at the time to the art centre. And he was digging the foundations. And he found some Roman pottery just in the corner here behind me. And on the back of that, he started to do his own excavation. And with a team, and the Archaeological Society got involved at some point as well. And it's here where they found the foundations of a mile castle. And if you don't know, along the whole length of Hadrian's Wall, 84 miles or so of it, every Roman mile, there is a mile castle. But mile castles were used to house soldiers in barracks. There might be anywhere between 8 and 20 Romans. There could be a stable in there, but basically there were gates along the wall, and there was a gatehouse and a tower attached to the mile castle to protect that gate, with obviously Hadrian's Wall being the northern frontier of the Roman Empire. So they needed these gates so people could come back and forwards through them. And you had these mile castles where soldiers would be stationed. There was stores, there was a mess kitchen, just a rudimentary place for a small number of soldiers to be housed to protect that gate. And this site here, where I'm stood on right now, is where Mile Castle number 4 was. I think at the time it caused some confusion because they had to redraw the maps of what they thought the route of the wall took. It kind of veered off a little bit. But to try and get an idea of the size of it, I'll go back to the football pitch example. It's roughly, I think, a little tiny bit smaller than half the size of a penalty area. And that's how big this particular mile castle was. And behind me here, you'll see some stones. Now, I'm not entirely sure if these stones form part of the foundations that were underneath here, or they're actually part of the old Roman wall. I'm not so sure, but there is, behind me in the corner there, which is now grated over, a medieval well. The studio behind me here, Sophie and Richard are in there. Great that I bumped into them, but they've shown me the tiled floor of that particular premises, which is the clay that was dug up from the foundation excavation in 1985, and it's obviously been fashioned into a floor. And some of those tiles have the names of the individuals that were involved in the excavation back in 1985. I should mention that it was that particular studio where David Fry was operating as a potter, which is why it's significant in terms of the clay that was used for that particular premises for the tiling of the floor. That's the courtyard of the Newcastle Arts Centre and Black Swan. Digressing slightly, if you like your salsa dancing on a Friday night here downstairs in the Black Swan, they have salsa classes run by a guy called Chris Pentland. Top bloke. Check it out. So there you go. And who would have thought, if you've ever been into the Mile Castle for a drink or a value for money meal, how much the building itself, but particularly the name, is absolutely steeped in history, going back 2 millennia. I think it's fascinating to me, because you just walk past it, you'll go inside, and think twice about what it's all about. Well, I think I'm going to visit a few more Wetherspoons in the Tyneside area to get to the bottom of the history of these places. If you'd like to see me do more videos like that, of course, hit the like button and smash that subscribe button. So every time I release a new video like this, you'll get an instant notification. Right, I'm off to the Granger Market. I'm going to get myself some lunch and a cup of tea. Thanks for watching.